Next Curve.
Hey, welcome to this Next Curve Rethink podcast episode where we break down the latest tech and industry events and incidents and things, right, into the insights that matter. And I'm Leonard Lee, and I am real. This just happens to be my virtual avatar, but I'm the executive analyst at Next Curve, joined by the illustrious Wienke Giezeman. I think I got that right.
Yeah, almost right. Wienke Giezeman.
We'll follow up on that because I heard Johan pronounce your name, and I'm almost certain I got it completely wrong. But yes, he is the founder and CEO of the Things industry, and he's joining me to talk about the past, present, and future of IoT, as well as the Things Conference 2024, which took place last week in Amsterdam and is now in the books. It's another one in the books, right, Wienke?
Yeah. As you said, I'm a co-founder, CEO. So together with Johan,
co-founder,
we started as the video you saw of the event last week. We both highlighted the progress and what we see in the industry, some trends, some optimism, and it was great. It was a great show last week.
Yeah, well, congratulations. But before we get started, remember to like, share, and comment on this episode and subscribe to the Rethink podcast here on YouTube and on Buzzsprout. Take us on the road and on your jog, and listen to us on your favorite podcast platform. And also make sure to check out the Things Conference. There's always great material, great insights coming out of this conference. And also check out the Things industries.
Thanks, Leo. It's great to be on the show.
Your faces. Yeah, and we're pioneers, right? We're Metaverse pioneers or spatial computing.
Maybe we have to explain at least
that
we're using the Apple Vision Pro for this and personas, and I think this is cutting edge technology. And I think what we also should share is that this is the third try of recording. So hopefully, what is it? What do you say in what's the saying in the US? 3 times a charm, or what is it?
3 times the charm? Yeah, maybe. It's usually 3 strikes you're out.
3 strikes you're out. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so I think you have the wrong analogy going on there, but that's okay.
In the Netherlands, there's actually a saying where the third time right. So
really? Okay. Yeah. Well, you guys are obviously much more pessimistic, and we love baseball is really what it boils down to. But hey, before we dive into the Things Conference, I just wanted to get a sense from you. What is the state of IoT? Because one of the things that I really regard you in is as a barometer for where we are in the hype cycle. Because you and I have had conversations. You've had me up on stage at the Things Conference, virtual as well as in person a couple times, and you always ask me to come up there to talk about hype, right? So where are we on the hype cycle? I know that you've seen a lot of stuff. The Things industry has seen a lot of things in the industry and how things have progressed over the years. I mean, where do you think we are?
Yeah, I think we're climbing towards this plateau of productivity, and there's been a lot of write-offs in IoT investments. And what we presented is that we see our adoption of our platform growing 60% year on year. So this means that we're now at 2.3 million devices that are registered to our software, and that's really a lot. And if you think that every device for a customer, we have the IoT platform that manages LoRaWAN devices, and for a LoRaWAN device, which is a low power, like a sensor that delivers telemetry data, like for water metering or facility management or temperature or whatever, the total cost of ownership of one device is on average $300. So we're adding about 1 million devices every year. So that means that our base is adding 300 million in kind of IoT spend every year, because you have to do that spend up front, right? Like the majority of that total cost of ownership. And I think what we see is that the analysts all conclude that the IoT market is growing 20% year on year. And that's a really nice growth in
Mm.
times which are uncertain, and that's just really nice. And we're very optimistic about the future. And kind of like what we shared is still all the pockets of value you can unlock with IoT by disclosing operational data that is
Mm.
not disclosed yet. And we gave some in the opening keynote an examples that, for instance, in the niche of facility management within IoT, you
Mm.
see a niche of refrigerator monitoring. And for instance, in the US, there are already 8 million commercial fridges, which all
Yeah.
have a business case to be monitored because they're all some way or the other, they are regulated. So adding sensors, low power sensors, LoRaWAN sensors to these
Mm.
refrigerators always drives a business case. And yeah, we're very optimistic. And when next year the appetite to do more capital spending returns, when the interest rates are lower, yeah, we're much more bullish on growth on the midterm
Hmm.
than all the analysts are. I do believe that we're going to see a much larger growth. So
Yeah.
yeah, the event is more kind of like a reflection and
Mm.
looking forward in the LoRaWAN industry globally. So we have people
Yeah.
from 70 different countries.
Mm.
Um, yeah, it's very well distributed across the world of the
Yeah.
wherever the visitors come from. And
Mm.
and we discuss these kind of things, and all these solution makers are there.
Now let's dive into the things conference itself. So this year, what was the theme? What were you guys talking about? What was that thing that you guys were trying to impress
Yeah, so
upon the industry?
so the Things Conference, we started it as 2018. It's a event like a user event for a company, the Things Industries, and the theme was the total cost of ownership of IoT, and it's been a highly underestimated and maybe even in sometimes downplayed topic because the reality is pretty harsh, right? The reality is harsh, and IoT, we've seen in the past that we're not too optimistic about the cost you basically have when you do an IoT solution or a low power sensor solution. And the only way to solve that, to be real about it, and to work together as an ecosystem just to make sure that we shave off that total cost of ownership, because the more we shave off that total cost of ownership, the
Mm.
more we make it scalable. One of the contributions or kind of product launches that we did was vertically integrating the IoT gateway that comes with
Yeah.
LoRaWAN
Mm.
and the management platform, launching almost like a cradle point kind of proposition where the IoT gateway is a self-configuring and managed
Yeah.
product, including backhaul, where we
Yeah.
expect that we can shave off the total cost of ownership for a deployment around 30%.
Mhm.
But I had a lot of partners that
Yeah.
followed that theme and had all kinds of talks. You can see them on
Yeah.
YouTube. It was really great. We're 1,000 people, and it was a really great event.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, and just so everyone knows, I am not upset. It sometimes this Vision Pro squishes your face a little bit. So I'm actually very happy. So don't get it twisted. Yeah, and so getting back to the conference, one of the things that I thought was really interesting, I did listen to the keynote, and this year I wasn't able to go. I was really sad that I wasn't able to participate, but so one of the things that Johan mentioned was you guys have like 4.5 billion, is it billion messages a month? Is
Yeah,
that true?
yeah.
And
So
yeah,
these are 4.5 billion messages per month, and it's yeah, that's a lot. It's like seven. What you said, 1,700 per second,
1700, yeah, something like that
uh,
per
and
second.
um, and LoRaWAN is a technology where you're very careful whether you're sending a message or not.
Right, right,
So
right.
the kind of information density of these messages, it's not like an IP packet or something, right? It tells something about a meter or about a fridge or about a mousetrap or about a if there's maybe like a water leak detected. These kind of
Hmm.
like data points are there. So yeah, that's very interesting. And this is all end-to-end encrypted. These are our customers' data, of course, so
Hmm.
we don't access those, but just shows it's real.
Right. And then it wasn't just a couple of years ago that you guys breached the 1 million device mark. It was
Yeah, it
just
was
a
only
couple
like
of,
2 years ago.
yeah,
Yeah.
2 years
But
ago. And so you guys are at
yeah.
2.3 now, right? So no, I just wanted to make sure everyone knew the growth trajectory and what you guys have experienced in the last few years, which is
Yeah.
it's encouraging. I mean, I think that lends to some of the forecasted growth for IoT that you expressed earlier on. What were some
Yeah,
of
yeah.
those
So
new things that you guys announced? I mean, you mentioned the
yes,
gateway, and I have a question about the gateway a little bit later, but what are some of the other things that you guys announced?
yeah, so one thing that we announced was we're constantly updating the platform. So what we provide with the ThinkStack Cloud is a platform where you connect the IoT gateways for LoRaWAN and the IoT devices, and we manage the network of the security and the devices,
Mm.
and then make sure that you have a very simple bit pipe or kind of like data pipe into your IT systems where you want to process the telemetry data. We improve the ease of operations of your network by, for instance, just adding a network operations center with a lot of fine-grained data where you can look at your network as an admin and then make changes or kind of confident that your network is running. We highly optimized our user experience typically in telco or kind of like these kind of systems. A great UX is not the number one priority, but we still feel that it's very important because we have thousands of users of our platform, and that means that if you're kind of building an IoT solution, it should be very pleasant to use because you have enough challenges on your plate. And we launched a plus version where we add some premium features that typically are used just to kind of like give you even more autonomy and more ease of use and higher qualities of service. Yeah.
Okay. Now, one of the themes, or actually a couple of themes from the previous years that were emerging. Uh,
Yeah, go on, go on.
yeah,
I'm not
so we
gone.
saw a lot of devices that come out with many different types of backhaul options. And then we also saw satellite become a big deal simply because satellite in the last couple of years has become a pretty hyped topic. You know, I think a lot of it is due to the advent of Starlink and their network, their satellite constellation and network services. So, how are things going there? Are those themes continuing to evolve, and how are they shaping up in the conversation?
Yeah,
Or how
so
did they
so
shape up in the conversation this year?
Yeah, so they shaped up in a conversation that our partner Lacuna Space is actually launching a very interesting satellite relay, which allows existing LoRaWAN devices to relay their message to a satellite. So actually,
Uh,
kind of like a small IoT gateway that is battery
yeah.
powered that can forward that message, which is
Yeah.
super nice because you have this massive ecosystem of more than 1,200 different types of LoRaWAN devices that are all hardware compatible with this solution. That's super cool. That's going slower than expected, but yeah, that's
Sure.
kind of like space. It's a tough game, I guess. And partially, I'm also very much looking forward to launch anything with a cellular backhaul because that would be really cool. Kind of would be a
Yeah.
fantastic combination together with LoRaWAN. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so there's also this emerging conversation about private LoRaWAN networks in concert with the public, or the more
When, yeah.
publicly. Yeah, you're right. What's going on there? Was there any talk about that? What are you seeing in terms of trends related to private?
Yeah, so the trend actually is that private is the end market. Basically, what I believe is where it's going towards is more what we then call LoRa LAN or LP LAN. And the majority of our deployments, like the vast majority, more than 90% of the majority, are not WAN setups. So they are
Mm,
stores, kind of like small supermarkets,
yeah.
restaurants. They have all these small use cases with great business cases. But if you have a lot of stores and you have a lot of supermarkets, kind of like this is where the scale comes from.
Yeah.
I do believe that in general, the low power wide area network, so the LP1 category, what we call it, right? There's other
Mm,
I think that's very, very challenging to work. And what we see is that where you bring in your own like LoRaWAN connectivity through a gateway
mm,
that can have a
mm.
cellular backhaul, that can have an Ethernet backhaul, Wi-Fi backhaul. That is basically where LoRaWAN really shines.
I think that's an interesting bit of commentary because so much of the focus on LoRaWAN has been on the wide area network and public, or more of a, let's say, a public model or a shared model type of conversation. And I think this notion that low power IoT really starts with private actually makes a lot of sense. I just don't think that it's perceived that way outside of the IoT community, or even in certain
There has
circles of the
been
IoT community, you know?
it's really hard, right? Like you can only
Yeah.
tell people like about it, technology once, and probably the things they first heard about it they remember the most. But LoRaWAN is evolving, and a lot of IoT
Yeah.
technologies are finding their niche.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think maybe the next year conference would really
Yeah.
be revisit LoRaWAN, because you kind of, if you're like we have a lot of people in our ecosystem that are curious about new technologies, and then they were going to look for a problem, which is perfectly fine. That's what technologists do. But now it's kind of like, almost I feel like everybody that had heard of LoRaWAN should kind of like, okay, so but what is it now? I heard of it 5 years ago, maybe even 10 years ago,
Yeah.
but like kind of like, where does it shine right now? And so
Yeah.
maybe that's like a great theme for next year's event: revisit LoRaWAN.
Rediscovering LoRaWAN,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, yeah. Well, the thing that I love about Gartner is their hype cycle, right? I thought that was well thought out, although sometimes it's misapplied and not used properly or perceived properly. But what you're describing is that ramp up the plateau of productivity, but this enlightenment that, okay, this is really what this technology is good for at the moment and going forward. And you've shed all of the nonsense that really does a lot of damage, because people just disregard things that disappoint them. And so, yeah, this might be a great time. And I think you guys are landing on practical use cases, practical approaches. And yeah, I've personally had the opportunity to witness that transformation, the journey that you guys have been taking. And so it is encouraging. So let me know next year if you want me out
Yeah.
there talking more about the hype and what's next, the plateau of productivity that everyone can anticipate as everyone starts to really look at value
Yeah.
versus all the theoretical nonsense.
Yeah,
So,
definitely. You're invited, for sure. That's the
all right. So, but you know what, Wienke, it's always great to have you on. It's been a while since you've been on Next Curve podcast, but we probably should do this more often. You want to take a moment to tell our audience how they can get in touch with you, engage with the Things Network, as well as the Things Conference
yeah.
2024, which I have a funny feeling is going to be about revisiting,
Uh,
and maybe even rethinking LoRaWAN.
no. So if you want to get in touch with us and know about our service, get to the thingsindustries.com. And for the Things Conference next year, that's our user event, which is the thingsconference.com. So it's pretty easy. We just launched a new product, as I said, the LoRaWAN Gateway. So we even made it easier for you to get started and to explore and to revisit LoRaWAN. And on LinkedIn, you can just find me on my name. There's nobody else called Wienke Giezeman, so that's super easy.
I love that. Well, it's great having you on once
It's
again.
a great
Thanks.
unique identifier.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's amazing. But everyone, thanks for being in. Really appreciate it. Please subscribe to our podcast, which will be featured on the Next Curve YouTube channel. Check out the audio version on Buzzsprout, and you can also alternatively find us on your favorite podcast platform, whether it's Apple Podcast or Google Podcasts, and also subscribe to the Next Curve research portal at www.next-curve.com for the tech and industry insights that matter. And until next time, we will see you in the metaverse.
See ya.